Hey y'all, Katie here with Team Evo AZ at eXp Realty. Thank you so much for listening to our show. We are super excited for this season. As you know, we are based in the Phoenix, Arizona area, but what you may not have known is that we're growing our team nationwide, and we have already started. So if you know of anybody that is looking to buy or sell throughout the country, no matter what state it's in, please contact us. We'd be happy to help. We'd be happy to offer advice. And if you know of anybody that is either getting into the real estate industry or is looking for an awesome change in their career and in their lives, we are also hiring real estate agents across the country. Thanks again and enjoy the show.
Hey everybody, it's Katie and
Matt.
Back with another episode of R.E.A.L, which stands for Real Estate and Life. So it's real with Matt and Katie. And today we're going to talk a little bit about real estate and a little bit about life. Funny that.
Wow, what a coincidence.
I know. Our title is good. Describes the day very, very well. Hello, Mr. Alex.
What's up, everybody? What's up, Katie and Matt?
How are you
Hi,
doing
Alex.
today?
I'm doing great. I'm doing marvelous. How you guys doing?
Pretty well.
Just wonderful, wonderful.
It's freezing, which, sorry, East Coast people. I know we have no reason to complain, but when it's 100 and whatever it is for however long here in Phoenix, it tends to thin your blood. So
Yeah,
anything under 70, you're just like,
even though where we're from, they got like some parts almost 4 feet of snow in New Hampshire. Like, it's ridiculous. I have friends that are posting pictures of like their cars not even visible in their driveway. It's that much snow. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm all set.
Yeah.
I'll take the sunshine that I see peeking out behind Alex's head.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
That's the only thing that's keeping me warm right now. So
Awesome. All right. Well, enough of that about that and more about real estate. So today we're going to talk a little bit about a very, very, very important document that that buyers receive during a transaction, during a purchase transaction here in I guess it's Arizona. Why?
Yeah, it's Arizona.
Yeah.
I think they probably do it in other states, but this one is Arizona specific.
Right. So anytime you're purchasing a property here in the state of Arizona, this is a document that you 100% should receive. If you don't, there's a big problem. But you absolutely should take a moment and go through it. So it's not one of those documents where, okay, let's face it, we're not supposed to, but let's face it, we get kind of robo-signy, right? Like, it's just another document. Okay, fine. Yeah, fine. Okay, I'll sign it. This is something you don't want to robo-sign. You really want to look at each and every page, go through each and every heading, and make sure that there are, obviously there are things on here that you want to investigate during the inspection period. So you want to get this up front, like at the beginning of your transaction.
Yeah.
It's a really important document to us here on the team, especially when we have first-time buyers or especially when we have people who have never purchased property in Arizona before. Super, super important that we go over this document with them in detail. So I'm going to bring it up on the screen and we're going to talk about it. All right, so here it is. The buyer advisory. You recognize this document, right, Alex?
absolutely.
Talk to me about this. Tell me about it. When do you incorporate this in your transaction? When do you talk to your buyers about this, and why?
Well, actually, we have the buyer advisory when we submit an offer, and the reason for that is we want to show to the seller that our buyer is educated and understands the process. Now, we also, when we first meet a buyer, we'll also give them the buyer advisory too, because we want them to familiarize themselves with the process and what to investigate when they're looking at properties. Now, just like you said, for first-time home buyers, they're not going to know every little thing to look out for. This document tells them every little thing and then some to look out for. So it is a very important document for not only first-time home buyers, but people who haven't, shopped for a house in 5 to 10 years, because it's gonna tell you, to what to prepare for in your inspections, what the whole process is like, everything that will go through an Arizona transaction.
Absolutely. It's a little bit different than our buyer cheat sheet, which kind of brings you through like each piece of the transaction and kind of tells you what's going on there. It's just like you said, and I'm glad that you deliver it when you do, because it's super important that a buyer receives this up front. I mean, if you look at the first page or second page, section 1, and this just kind of spells it out. This is a big reason why. It goes through all of the documents that you probably would see in a buyer transaction. You know, I mean, the MLS printout, why is that important to get, Alex?
Well, the MLS printout is going to say all the facts and figures about the property. The description, all the updates, all the numbers of the features throughout. How big of a lot it is, how big of the square footage of the house. Little things like when each item was updated, your HOA fees, your HOA capital improvement fees, transfer fees, all of those things. So you want to know all the facts and figures about the property.
Absolutely. There's going to be a lot of information on that MLS printout.
Yeah, and I think it also allows, everyone to be a little bit more proactive. There's so many moving parts in a transaction, and there's so many different types of systems and different types of issues that need to be explored when purchasing a home. And if you kind of don't think about this going into it, people get emotional. They're now in contract with their dream home. They're dealing with their finances with the bank. Now all of a sudden they're starting to consider all this stuff. If you don't proactively think about that beforehand, you can really cause yourself some undue stress by considering all this after the fact. So I think, the way that Alex does it, even, before or right when they're filling out the contract is just great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. And there's some things on here that, just in this section 1 is super important, right? There are things in here that you want to make sure that you get during your transaction. If there is an HOA, you want to see the HOA disclosures. You want to go through those and make sure that you agree to everything, because what if your dream home is in a community where you can't park a work truck? Yeah. And you're an electrician? What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Yep.
It sucks to find that out at the last minute.
Yeah. Or even, once again, at the last minute or in opportune time, that's just, clouding your decision. And especially if you're hustling at that last minute to find out what that entails, can you get around it? HOAs nowadays, they're not as responsive. They're pretty busy. So
they're very busy.
Trying to get information from them in a short amount of time is usually not possible.
It's super difficult, honestly. I mean, we're having to put rushes on things now with HOAs that we never had a rush before.
And I think that actually just kind of relates to everything. I think everything that you're trying to do real estate related nowadays, whether it's getting a good vendor out there or getting anyone to explore these concerns that you might have last minute, it's very difficult. So once again, by kind of skimming through this document, it's really going to bring up maybe to that buyer something that may be important to specifically them and not someone else, but spark that, I need to really maybe kind of get some ducks in a row to explore that further versus waiting.
Absolutely. So section number 2, this whole document's super important. So I'm going to say section number 2 is super important too, and you're going to hear me say that throughout the entire podcast today.
She repeats herself a lot. I'm used to it.
Come on. But anyway, it is. And Alex, I'm sure you have some stories that'll curl your toenails about section 2. And this is the list of everything that buyers should investigate and may not think about investigating. You've got a full remodel. Let's just say the property that you've got your offer on is a full remodel. Investigate who did that remodel. Mm-hmm. Investigate if it needed permits pulled. Investigate those portions. Are there any manufacturer warranties on any of the materials used? Investigate those portions of the remodel. Square footage is a huge one, huh, Alex? How many times have we run into a house that has totally wrong square footage? And we've made it right, and we've made an offer on a property that we thought was larger than it actually is. That's going to screw with us during the appraisal period a little bit, I would think.
Yeah. Yep. The other big one in here too, and it's something that a lot of people don't think about in Arizona just because we don't have a lot of rain, but it's also flood insurance and floodplain status. I know Alex, we've dealt with this a few times. This thing is with flood insurance and floodplains, this is forever changing. So people don't really think of that. Sometimes you go into a community, especially up when you're in more rural areas like Queen Creek and all these outlying areas, they could change in a year. If all of a sudden FEMA decides to say, hey, this is going to be an issue, people don't think about it. So it's one of those good things to read and you say, maybe I should look real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I had a transaction in Apache Junction that was right up against the wash. And, the way they scale floodplains is the amount of years it takes to get a flood. And this was a 1 out of 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it was still a floodplain. So we had to get flood insurance on it. And we didn't know that until the last moment. We were representing the seller, and the buyer was on the verge of not qualifying for the property just because she needed $20 to $30 more a month flood insurance on the property. So it was so there's just so many interesting things that can occur that you want to know and investigate in advance.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, mold. I don't know. So do you guys ever hear this saying, oh, it's Arizona, it's super dry there. Mold is a very, very, very rare thing.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you what, it's not.
Yep.
There are a lot of properties that we've had even this year that have, last month, this month,
right now,
that have mold issues. And, obviously that can be caused by a variety of things. But this particular issue that I had a couple of months ago, there was like a hairline crack in the shower, hairline. And over years of use, it just, it has to have a water source and it has to have warmth in order to grow, right? And so years of use, the water source continued, and there was mold all underneath the bathtub.
Wow. Yeah.
And it was crawling into it was an unfortunate situation. There was a little kid, a baby's bedroom was behind that, and it was starting to seep into and starting to grow into his closet.
And that baby has 3 arms now. I'm just kidding. You don't get that from me.
No. But I mean, the homeowners had no clue.
Yeah, it's
And I mean, your situation too, I don't think the homeowners had a clue
no
either.
Idea they had all this stuff because he has respiratory issues. But the thing that you learn too in Arizona, though, is it is a little less common, but especially the very, very dangerous ones, Stachybotrys, black mold, most people know. All these ones that need to live in this environment for a long period of time, where with Arizona's climate's always changing, and that's usually what's also changing the source of the water. That kind of protects us a little bit. But needless to say, it's super important that if you feel like you have respiratory issues, it's an older home, or there's signs of possible water intrusion or water, those elements that make mold, it's probably worth it to get the quick little mold test and see what's up.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a little bit of extra money, but I would rather know what I'm getting into, or know that it's clear and I'm not getting into something before I go drop tens of thousands of more dollars on a property, because they're not cheap.
Yeah.
Nope.
The way I always tell my clients is it's worth it to spend a couple $100 rather than a couple $100,000 on a house. Yeah. So investigate it.
Totally. Another big one for us, I know, are sewer pipes.
Yeah.
Now, we do a lot of sewer pipe investigation, not so much on the newer homes, but more so on the older homes. I mean, I know it's a rule of thumb for you to suggest a sewer inspection, a sewer pipe inspection on what age do you usually do that on? What age and older? Usually
before, I mean, it honestly depends on the areas too, but usually before the 80s. Between 70 to 80s, sometimes they're using BS, but at the same time, you just never know. Some neighborhoods and areas are different. Some builders were different than in the material they use, but usually before 80, I suggest it. Before 70, I absolutely suggest it, because you just never know what's going to occur. I mean, I've had 70s properties pop up with branches in their pipes or old piping, cracked piping or collapsed piping. If your home is definitely in the 40s, 50s, and you have no idea what the condition or the material that's in the sewer line, you definitely want to have that you definitely want to know. You want to have it in the back of your head if it's going to be something you're going to have to deal with, or if it's good right now. So
Yep.
it's a huge thing, and it's a huge cost, because if something's wrong with it down the road, like you said, with those remodeled properties, what if they had to jackhammer all that beautiful new tile in your house to get to the sewer line? So you
Yep.
want to know before you go ahead with the purchase.
It's happened. And that expense, not only are you now ripping up all your beautiful tile you just paid premium dollar for probably, but the whole situation in and of itself is quite an expense too. I mean, you're talking several $1,000s to get your sewer line. No?
Yeah, like for let's just say a 1,500 square foot house in Phoenix, $12,000 to $13,000 to have it re-sleeved. And there's a whole different technology, and we should actually do a podcast on that, because we could go for hours on that. But I definitely think that, if your home is below 1980s, or you're looking at a home below 1980s, get it scoped. We work with a great person that actually does it for free. So if you are in that position, reach out to us. But I think, we'll definitely touch back on this one.
We will. I do want to do an episode on it too, because one thing that I'll add to this episode, and we'll do it again when we probably see if we can get Toby on actually with us, is a lot of these cities offer insurance for the sewer pipes. So I know for sure Scottsdale does. I know Mesa does. I know Phoenix does. They all do.
Yeah, they all do. So make sure you pay attention, because we're going to have that podcast coming up.
Yeah.
So we're not giving you any more information. You have to watch that one.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
All right. That's his way of saying move on to the next thing, Katie. Okay. So
I do it in a good way.
Section 3, he knows me. So Section 3 is, again, super important. Wow. Surprise, surprise. But there are a few in here that I feel like people don't really pay a lot of attention to. One of them specifically is the sex offender list. I don't know. And, me being a mom and having a lot of clients that are moms and, with young families and things like that, I know that it's important to people, yet they don't think to check that out. Mm-hmm. And it can be very surprising when you do that to really see where exactly you live and where, these registered people live.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that even as a real estate professional, it's kind of strange that we aren't even allowed to really we can lead you to the resources to look up this information, much like crime stats and stuff like that. But it's not something we can provide you as a professional and say, hey, I looked at this last night and you should be concerned.
Right.
We cannot do that, and neither any representative can. So that's why it's important to read through this, because if it is important to you, at least we can say, hey, go to this site, do your research, figure out if it's a comfortable level. Is there a comfortable level? I don't know, but it seems like in the city, it's something we need to kind of accept nowadays. But yeah, number 3 is a great one to rip through.
For sure. It was crazy. One day I sort of dove into the crime stats and the sex offender list in my area a few houses ago. And I found out one of my friend's husbands was on the sex offender list. That was cool. So careful what you, careful how deep you dive down it. But anyway, that's that. So the next section is other methods to getting information about a property, which I think people also don't think about. And I know that we always suggest this. I always suggest this to my buyers. When you've identified a home and you're either under contract or you're really seriously considering putting an offer in, drive by that home, sit in front of it, or don't be too creepy, 100%. But and sit there a couple of times a day. Go at night, go late at night, go early in the morning, see what's going on there.
Yeah. I have a funny story about that. I did the same thing with the house that I'm in right now. And I would drive by it 2 to 3 times a week during the afternoon and at night. And one time at night, I saw a homeless person walking a shopping cart across, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, oh shoot.
Jubilee had something to say about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's like, what neighborhood did you put me in? But at that time I was seriously oh man, I don't know if I should be buying this house, but it turned into, a beautiful, clean neighborhood. I think that was just a freak occurrence, but it was funny. But do it. Drive by around your neighborhoods at all times of day.
See what your neighbors are up to, because you don't know that. See what they're parking in.
Talk
the
to them.
Yeah, talk to them. It's super important. And
but don't just talk to one. Talk to a couple. Each one can have a
Yeah.
different opinion on the
I
neighborhood.
Totally agree. Totally agree. We did that on our last house that we bought. We went and talked to all the neighbors in the cul-de-sac. There were like, what, 4 or 5 of them? So, and I have a lot of buyers that do it. I have buyers that'll door knock. They'll go door knock on everybody's door and up and down the street. I should give them some flyers when they do that, but they will, because they want to investigate. They want to meet these people, and they absolutely should do that.
Yeah.
So that first page of the buyer advisory is kind of the summary of what the rest of the pages have. And the following pages get a little bit more deep into each section and each document, as you can see here. And I like it because you can click on each link, and it's an interactive, so it's very, very easy to do your research, and you can, anyway, it's easy. Because you can click on them. So I really like this document a lot for that. Again, so this is all of the documents that we kind of briefly discussed in section 1. And you just go through, and it makes it a very, very easy way to go through everything and to do your own investigations. Obviously, as your representation, if it's one of our buyers, this is something we'll go through with you, and we can talk in detail about any one of these topics in any of these sections. Alex, I'm sure you do a lot of buyer coaching on that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's imperative. You want them to know as much as they can to be comfortable with the property and comfortable with the process itself. So as much coaching and as much educating you can, about the process or what to investigate, just makes it a better process for everybody. It makes everybody a little bit more confident and comfortable.
I absolutely agree. And I will actually link a copy of the buyer advisory to the show notes today. So if anybody wants to get a look at that, it'll be really, how I like the quick links. So it'll be right there for everyone. Anything else or any other stories that you guys want to add before we go about the buyer advisory? Or, I know we all have crazy stories because collectively, I think we've been in real estate for 40 years between the 3 of us. So I'm sure we have some stories, but.
Yeah, no, and I just think once again, it's a tool that's just been kind of brought into our marketplace within the last decade. I remember selling real estate when they didn't have a buyer advisory, and which is crazy to think.
That's how old you are.
I know, right? Look who's talking. So once again, I think that it's a great tool to use because there are so many moving parts. There are so many pieces of this contract. There's so much to explore. And this really just helps you kind of bullet point it, make it simple so you're not overwhelmed, and figure out a good proactive path to walk as you buy a home.
Yep, super important stuff.
It gives you the sense that you are not only just investigating the house itself, but the surrounding areas around you too.
Yeah.
So it opens you up to, it opens your eyes to not just the home, but everything else, everything around you, next to you, down the street to you. So that's what I like about the buyer advisory.
And I like it too for the comfort level of the buyer. So, it's, especially if you're doing it for the first time, it's a super huge big deal to buy a house. And isn't it nice to know and feel like at the end of the day, I investigated absolutely everything there is to investigate.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah. And it's also going to remove that possibility, which can happen to anyone with that whole buyer's remorse, or all of a sudden like that late night wake up. Did I do everything I was supposed to do? Or I should have done this, or maybe the wife telling you should have done that. So husbands out there, make sure you read the buyer advisory. It'll save your house and your marriage. Okay.
That's funny. Awesome, guys. All right. Well, Alex, if somebody would like to get involved with some absolutely epic buyer representation, of course they would call you. What's your number?
My number is 480-442-5743. So feel free to call, text, or anything. I'm always available.
Awesome, guys. All right. Well, everybody, here's what we would like you to do. Please follow us on any podcast platform. I totally forgot what I was going to say. On any podcast or whatever your favorite podcast platform is, I should say, we quite like iTunes. And then I know that there are some other users that use Google. Was it Google Podcasts? I think that's Android. I think it's Google Podcasts. But anyway, whatever platform that you like to listen to your podcast on, definitely download, like, rate, review us. We would love your help to get more of this real news out to the real people.
Absolutely. And if you're looking for information on real estate, or you're actually thinking about getting involved in real estate, don't hesitate reaching out to us.
That's true. We have danced that dance. I mentor quite a few new agents actually, and also we are hiring team members across the country. So that's a really good point. And let us know if you guys want to get into real estate. All right, guys.
Thanks,
have an awesome
Alex.
day. Bye.
Yeah, of course, guys. You everybody have a great day. Bye.
Thank you.